and welcome back to Journeys to College and Beyond. As you all know, I'm sure applying to college is no small feat. And as a high school student, it's easy to feel like there's a lot of weight on your shoulders in this process. Luckily, it's college counselors like our guest today who dedicate their entire career to guiding and supporting students through it all and help them realize their dreams of higher education. So please welcome the Director of College Counseling at University Laboratory High School, Lisa.
Hi, Maddie.
Hi.
Thanks for the invite.
Oh my gosh, we're so excited to have you. I have so many questions. Why don't you start off by just explaining a little bit more about your role?
Sure. So at my high school, I serve as the Director of College Counseling, which primarily means working with 11th and 12th graders, because that's pretty time sensitive. There are tasks that have to be done.
Yeah.
It's definitely a family partnership, so we can include the parents and the guardians and caregivers in these conversations. But definitely over the years, and I'm, by the way, in my 33rd year of doing this job.
Amazing.
I have dipped into doing more early education for even our younger families progressively, just so that there's healthy foundational information being given. Because without that, you can find bad information.
That makes sense. Yeah. You don't want to have any bad habits to break when
Correct.
it comes time to start doing stuff. So what's one piece of advice that you give every student, kind of regardless of age, I guess, if you're starting even younger than 11th and 12th grade? A piece of advice that you give every student when they start to think about college, whenever that might be.
It's usually a piece that they really don't want to hear, because so much of this is about knowing yourself. The self-reflection piece is first, and too many times it's the name of a college or asking right away, what do I do for this college? And you're really trying to help them understand what is your purpose and your motivation regarding why that school got on your radar. And sometimes you have to kind of push back on stereotyped beliefs, and you have to bring in parents and guardians to talk about kind of the college search journey, that it starts with a lot of self-reflection, a lot of thinking about what your hopes are, your dreams are, but also your likes and dislikes. So usually the beginning of college planning and college searching is lots of self-reflection, which is sometimes the piece most kids want to bypass. They want to go right to the name of a school.
Yeah. I feel like that advice honestly applies to a lot more than just college applications. And I don't feel like I could have used that advice. I think I probably got that advice at some point when I was applying to school, because I remember being really into like the common theme with a lot of these schools was like they were in Florida, or they were in somewhere very sunny, or somewhere close to like the mountain. You know, I was picking a location almost like I would go about picking a vacation. But college is different.
And I'll tell students, you have a lot of time. You're so young. You're picking an experience for 4 years. And you're right. Sometimes it becomes the focus of just, I want to be in a certain city.
Yeah.
And great, let's talk about that. But let's make sure that I also have your parents and guardians with me, because if I'm helping you dream about New York and they're thinking, over my dead body, are you ready to go to New York City? We're not really doing a proper kind of deep dive into this. So family values impact this conversation a lot. So I'm definitely a partner with families to make sure that whoever is in their unit to support them, we're all kind of having that conversation.
I love that approach, because it is a family decision. And you mentioned earlier that you're now working with students at even younger and younger ages when they start to kind of think about not necessarily college, but those foundational things that you mentioned earlier. What are some of those foundational things?
So my first formal exposure to working with ninth graders is in a class that we do in combination with health. So we get to be with them as counselors for a quarter. So every quarter we have a different group of kids. And I partner with our school counselor, who's also doing a lot of things regarding just mental health and wellness, making sure that they think about relationship building and communication skills and things of that nature. And then I'm already exposing them to parts of the holistic admissions process to have them understand that this is not just a formula. And that when you look at colleges and when colleges look at you, this concept of fit, what does that mean? What is mutual fit? You may find your fit in a school, but they're reading you to find that fit also. So I'm not taking a ninth grader on a journey of researching schools. I'm taking them through a lot of self-reflection activities. We do things like the 16 personalities quiz so that they can come up with their Holland code.
Yeah, the Holland types. Yes.
And we talk to them about ways that they can start really even thinking about what have they done in their high school life. I even have them take an inventory of how do you spend your time when you're not in class. So when you really take an inventory of, I'm in student council, or I'm playing sports, or I'm involved with this instrument for how many years, then I push them to say, why? What's your motivation? Are those choices yours? Are those choices coming from family? Is there expectations on you? What would you stop if you could without shame? So it's trying to unpack all of these things, because pretty soon they're going to be thinking about what college fit means. And sometimes I think students are just used to kind of having things prescribed for them. And now we're trying to unpack all of that to say, but what matters to you?
I love that approach of pulling it back and really focusing on the individuals and the interests, because there's so much information flying around at this time for kids that you're right, the prescription of being a student who has parents, teachers, people in their lives telling them what to do. Right. I think it's really cool that you can be a person who is like giving advice and guidance, but not telling them what to do, but more asking them, how do you feel about this?
Yeah.
So I love that approach. What do you say to a high school student who comes to you with concerns about getting in and they're really focused on that, maybe a really competitive major, sure. They have high hopes for themselves?
Yeah. So you really do have to kind of talk with them in a way to explain the competitive nature can also be kind of a siloed view of this entire process.
Yeah.
So in explaining to them when it comes to college admissions or thinking about your future, oftentimes it starts with fear, because too many times I think the press and the media talk about how hard it is to get into college, when the reality is most accept 60 to 70% of their applicant pool. So first of all, saying you will go to college if you want to go to college, and I'm here to help you. But let's talk about how do you actually explore colleges so that, again, you go back to, and I know it's so hard at this young age, they don't know themselves.
Right.
I always say, ironically, this process is not even aligned with adolescent development. Their frontal lobe is not even developed. But yet, even in college essays, they're being expected to talk about how do you want to make an impact? And they're like, I just want to get up in the morning and get to class on time. So I think sometimes we really have to help them understand that college admissions and how you think about competitiveness or what you have to do to get in is so nuanced by the type of school you're looking at.
Apart from the anxiety around applying, the prescription thing we talked about previously, are there any other common mistakes that you see students making during their college search and application process?
If I had a magic wand, I wish that they had time without distraction to really do deep dives into researching colleges. Because if you think about it, colleges want kids who are critical thinkers, who are researchers, who can really kind of compare and contrast and think. This process comes at a time while they're trying to get through their crazy life in high school, their extracurriculars, their responsibilities, their adolescent development, their hormones, their relationships, you name it.
Right.
Their ACT, their SAT. I mean, if we literally listed everything that's coming at them, and then it's like, oh, and now add this in. Oh, and spend time to be intentional. And sometimes they're just like, I am tired.
Totally.
And even if you think about a college visit, right? I'm an advocate for them if they can to get on a campus. The virtual experiences are amazing. I love that since COVID, those have grown, because now there really is no excuse to not have access to college information. But the reality is I wish they could all spend 2 weeks on a campus, right? And actually do an in-depth dive and like talk to students and really see what a weekend is like and wake up every day for 5 days in a row. So I think if anything, the thing that I wish students could do is if I see a student who is building a college list, and let's say they're focusing on chemistry, they have a hard time explaining what chemistry means at this college versus the next college. And they have a hard time understanding that you need to embrace all the other aspects of college. So if you say, well, wait a minute, you play an instrument. Did you find out at that college if you could actually be in the orchestra as a non-music major? And sometimes they'll go, oh, I never thought of asking that. Or you write for the school newspaper. Have you asked if you can write for the paper and be a non-journalism major? So I'm always trying to push them to think you're going to school to be a whole human being. Where are you going to be seen, celebrated, empowered? And that takes so much more than just, Googling best colleges in history. And so If I had a magic wand, I'd give them more time to be intentional.
I can tell you're very good at what you do. I can tell you've been doing it for a very long time.
I'm obsessed with this stuff.
I think this is awesome. And I think two things come to mind from your answer you just gave. One of them is college research and research in colleges, and you touched on the virtual aspect. If you're listening to this podcast right now, you are doing research on a college, be it Illinois or any other school. So I think that looks a lot different than just visiting a school website or getting a brochure in the mail or whatever it looked like when, you and I were applying to school. It looks very different. So I don't know. I encourage people to listen to podcasts like this, to go to the social media channels, the YouTube channels, whatever it may be for the schools. That's how you got to feel. If you can't physically be there in person, these are ways to feel out if this is something that could work for you.
I even tell them to be stealth. I'm like, if you are looking at U of I, let's use this as an example, and you know that you can't wait to try some of these clubs because you went on the registered student organization page, DM the club, see what they write back, ask about it, right? Like be more intentional in stealth and just get beyond the glossy brochures and the website.
Right. Yeah. Dig a little deeper, a little more personal too.
Exactly.
So how can students make their application stand out beyond grades and test scores and these things that people fixate a lot on when applying to school?
That's such a big question because the data points are what they focus on. They focus on grades. They focus on GPA, which I'm always trying to help them understand. Your GPA is not necessarily the number being used in admissions. A lot of colleges will look more at your core letter grades in English, math, science, social studies, foreign language. So let's just keep in mind when you kind of think, how are you showing a transcript? Let's look at even what trajectory you've had for grades, especially if it's in alignment with a major. So for instance, let's say you're not an engineering applicant, but you are going into the humanities. The student who might have had the B in calculus can probably breathe a little bit, because they may not be focusing that much at a college admissions review on that. So we're always trying to help them understand, don't just focus on data points, it's the whole picture. SAT, ACT, the test optional movement, again, don't focus on a data point. That 3-hour exam doesn't make you more interesting, okay?
Very true.
Honestly, and so therefore we're always trying to help them understand you are a whole person applying, and that's exactly why admissions applications have activities and essays and additional information to say, what else do you need to tell us that is not a part of the application? The freedom that they're given to always go deeper. If a student says, oh, if I only could tell admissions this, I'll say, guess what? You can. Yes. There is a space for that.
Yeah.
So trying to help them understand you're so much more than just a number.
I feel like something that is maybe a little bit slept on as a component of the application is the essays.
Yeah.
I think that, like you're just saying, there is a space for you to express these things, and you're more than the sum of your parts. You're a holistic person, and that's why we have holistic reviews.
Right.
I also want to acknowledge the piece where a lot of students apply to a lot of schools. They come from different high schools. They come from different backgrounds. Those high schools might not all have the same opportunities. Right. Things like access to AP courses and stuff like that. Do you have any advice or guidance for a student who is maybe coming from a smaller school?
Yeah. So definitely they should let go of the fear as if they're being compared to another school who has those resources, because they're not. It's exactly what you said. They're being read in context of their high school.
Yeah.
The college admissions officers and counselors who go into this profession care about this age group and need to know the context of the high school these applicants are coming from. So nobody's going to be penalized. However, depending on the type of colleges that they're applying to, if I have a student who's talking with me, and I do some work with students through summer camps at U of I, where I'll work with kids who come from Danville and come from different areas. And if they share with me the barriers they have in their high school, I will always say, okay, I get it, but curiosity is free. There are things at the library, there are TED Talks, there are books you could read. If you truly have an area that you're interested, yes, there are podcasts you can listen to. Thank you. So it's like you can literally get information. So think about the kid who would always be in a story that you'd hear about admissions where they didn't have AP courses, but they took the bus to the library and they read a calculus book on their own. Again, we know kids are busy, but I want kids to think outside of the box and not let a system ever dictate their curiosity or ability to be curious.
I think that's really good advice. And, you know, I think that applies to, I mean, I'm feeling empowered by that right now. And I'm not a student, but I'm hearing that. And like, yes, you're right. I love that. Curiosity is free. So let's use it. And knowledge is power. So like, why not take advantage of your resources, even if they're not necessarily in such a clear-cut form as a class, you know, on your schedule.
And again, they need to explain that. Their voice should be that in their application under additional info, or there's a prompt that actually says something about, is there ever been a barrier to your learning? They should say those things. They should say, I tried to take this course. My high school didn't offer it. I even tried to get it at my community college. I wasn't able to get there physically. Whatever their narrative is and their journey, I'm empowering them to say the story. And if there isn't space for it, because not every college takes letters of rec, sometimes that context can be shared deeper by a counselor or a teacher. But when those pieces are not a part of the puzzle, the onus falls on the student. And so then it's helping them understand you have a space to say something too.
Awesome. Yeah. And why not use it, right?
Why not use it?
Yes. I remember when I was writing my college essays, I was like, I'm using all those 500 words or whatever it was, you know, like, why not? If we could talk about the essay part, for maybe we'll have you back and we'll talk about some of these, just like a real deep dive, because there's so much here. But I do want to switch gears a little bit and talk about, we've spoken on if you're coming from a different background. So a similar note is have you noticed any changes with students over the years between millennials, Gen Z, Gen Alpha? What's changed with those applicants and their interests? And what stayed the same?
Because I have a history of being in this profession since 93, oftentimes, even when we have reunions at uni, the alums that I've known since 93, 95, 99 will often say, how have things changed?
Yeah.
So I love this conversation because I do feel like the students that I worked with in the early 90s, late 90s, early 2000s, they were kind of fun risk takers. Right?
Really?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it would be like, I'm going to start an underground newspaper. I'm going to write. It was all of this, like thinking outside of the box kind of all the time. And I do feel like everything feels so high stakes now to these students, that there's this sense of like, instead of being self-reflective and letting their curiosities kind of evolve and maybe even taking risks and failing and realizing I don't have to be perfect at everything, there tends to be this loss of self-reflection for more of this focus on, I'm building up my self-promotion. And all of a sudden it becomes, everything is like, okay, is this going to look good to admissions? And I laugh and say to the students, if you ever come in and say, I have a question for you, blah, 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 but what looks better to admissions? My head will explode in front of you. Okay. Because that is not the question.
Talk about high stakes, Lisa.
Yes, like my head will explode because we never want it to always be, you're doing it for admissions. Because guess what? What happens if potentially you don't get into the school that you did that for admissions?
Yeah.
There are students then who are mad and bitter, feeling like I did it for this and I didn't get the outcome I wanted. So helping them understand consequences of their choices, helping them focus on what they can control. There's a lot they can control.
Yeah.
My God, you can control how engaged you are in class. You control how many colleges you apply to. But there's this sense as if like they have no control over this.
Yeah.
And they have a lot of control.
I think that's a good reminder. I think the lesson that I'm hearing from a lot of your responses, that's a recurring theme, is yes, the onus is on the student, but it's important for them to be themselves and you've talked a lot about self-discovery. I feel like if I were the student that did all X, Y, and Z just to look good to an admissions counselor, to try to get into a school and it didn't work out, I would look back and I would probably think, wow, I wish I would have just done what I wanted.
Right.
So the lesson there is do what works for you. Do what you're actually passionate about. And
do
again,
it well. Use your resources in your high school, because if you are thinking I'm leaning into this area and I've got these curiosities, or heck, I don't even know how to actually expand on my interests in more creative ways. people are there to be think tanks with students.
Mm.
And my God, I guess the takeaway of this is use your resources. And if you don't have resources or you feel like you don't, my gosh, if you live in town, guess what? U of I is a resource.
Yeah.
Parkland's a resource.
Yeah.
Right? You've got so many things you can tap into. So ask for help, use resources, and people want to help.
Yeah. That's such a nice thing to, make known. Community colleges are a great resource. Local libraries are a great resource. The internet, duh, great resource.
Yep.
So, you have to get creative with how you get this information sometimes.
Can I add something? You asked Maddie about how is this student potentially like more competitive?
Mm-hmm.
The thing that I think gets lost by students is they are showing a college in the admissions process their potential, right? They're not self-actualized human beings right now. They're growing and learning, but it's their potential. So I'll say to students, if you want a college to understand your potential to be intellectual or a community member, right? How are you building that muscle memory now? So the thing that I really want every one of your listeners and viewers to understand is the first thing is think about how are you an engaged community member where you currently live? Because if you're applying to a college, whether it's in your backyard or it's out east, out west, it's far away. Mm-hmm. Why should they believe you're going to take advantage of their resources if you show no evidence you're doing that now? So how are you using the resources in your high school? How are you using the resources in your backyard? Then when you apply to a college and you write those essays, I can't wait to use the city this way. I can't wait to, they're going to be like, really? Have you done it before?
Yeah.
Are you that kid who actually has evidence and has experiences that show you have that muscle memory to try it? Because they're predicting your potential. And when kids realize that, it's not about paying thousands of dollars to fly off to a summer camp to impress someone. What's in your backyard?
That's more impressive to me. I know I don't.
You're using your resources.
People. Yeah. Mm-hmm. We've talked a lot about the perceptions around college.
Yeah.
In popular media, popular culture, movies and shows about high school. There are movies and shows about high school that are specifically about college admissions, getting into college. Yeah. Do you have a favorite? Is there anything you see that they get right, that they always get wrong?
So things that come to mind right away, because we've talked about this even in our counseling office at uni. I always think of 3. There's an episode in Modern Family I think about.
Yes.
Never Have I Ever. I think about that when the main character was applying to Princeton. And then if you are a Sex and the City fan, now there is the spinoff called what is it called?
And Just Like That.
And Just Like That.
Yes,
Thank you.
Yes. Yeah.
And there's an episode in there where Charlotte and Lisa actually are considering a private college consultant for their kids. And that
their own Lisa.
That episode made me laugh because the consultant goes in a private room with these kids and the parents are like, getting all excited, like we may be able to get this person to help us. The woman leaves to go to the bathroom. The parents go in the room to basically say to the kids, what do you think? And when they open the door, both kids are in hyperventilation. They're breathing in and out of a paper bag. And they basically say, oh my God, she told me I can't say that I'm adopted. I was told I'm not being black enough and it was like they were literally questioning everything about their identity. Now, again, this is an over dramatized, but the fact is the message sometimes becomes, which is exactly what Varsity Blues was about, is that you're not good enough the way you are. So we have to spin it. We have to create someone that's more interesting. And so when I think about these episodes that come out, like that kind of is interesting. I think it magnifies how kids feel. They truly, some of them don't think they're good enough. And I work with amazing young people. I say to students all the time, if you were my age, we'd be hanging out. You're super cool, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like they get a message either that they're not good enough. Mm-hmm. The episode of Modern Family cracks me up because I don't remember the characters' names. I'm sorry, but I know that she's applying to college and she's about to go do her interview. Oh. And while she's walking up behind the admissions officer, they're on their cell phone between appointments at a coffee shop. And the admissions officer calls someone and says, if I talk to one more kid who plays the violin, does STEM activities. Like basically she's like saying, I'm so bored.
Yeah.
And the reality is, I think sometimes that am I sharing my authentic stories, or am I speaking and writing to impress? So when I see an admissions office thing, right, that basically says relax, right? We have a lot of smart kids that apply. We get it, you're smart. But who else are you? Like, go deeper.
Yeah.
And it's hard for students to realize you don't always have to sell how smart you are. That comes out in many different pieces of your file.
Yes.
But who are you as a community member can get lost unless you really think, who am I? What are my values? And what excites me about joining your community? And how can I be added value to your community?
It is a lot about community and how you're going to work in the space. Yeah. I'll add that I just remember, like, I'll answer my own question.
Yeah, please do.
Like, cool
you have
on
an
the
episode?
Podcast. Yeah, I think it's High School Musical 3. It must be 3 whenever they graduate. And at the very end, like, I don't know, Troy Bolton is like hemming and hawing over like, will I pick basketball? Will I pick music theater? The whole movie. And at the very end, he's like, well, I was going to go to Juilliard, but I don't think that's for me. And then I was going to go play for like, I don't know, some like amazing basketball school. And he was like, I've decided to compromise and go to Stanford. Oh. And I was like, and you watched that? I don't know how old I was when this movie came out, but I was not like really thinking about college seriously. And I was like, yeah, compromise and go to Stanford. That sounds like a pretty good deal. Looking back at that now, I was like, oh my God, why did they even let him say that? It was ridiculous.
Well, thanks for sharing.
Yeah, I don't know. That mine wasn't as deep as yours and didn't
No.
have really any meaning, but that's ridiculous. I look back at some of these things and I'm like, maybe this is where kids my age and younger really get the perception that, you know, they're not good enough because they're not compromising and going to Stanford. Yeah. You know, media is very powerful in that way. So
it is.
Yeah, it's actually crazy. Well, thank you for indulging my movie
of
question.
Course.
So we're thinking about college, thinking about high school, obviously. I kind of want to wrap up this episode by asking you about your own path, your own journey, if you will, to college and beyond. Spoiler alert, we know where you end up. It's here on a podcast with me, talking about your amazing career. But what was it like for you applying to colleges?
Yes. Well, let's just say it was very intentional to apply to college because we couldn't just get online and hit click. You had to ask a college to send you the application. So nobody was over applying.
That's crazy.
Okay. So when I applied, no one was applying to a ton of schools because you were doing each one separately and waiting for the paper application to come to you. So I do think the technology part has increased this fact of everything is so accessible that it's easy to just lose that intention because it's click, 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 right?
Yeah.
So I ended up coming to the University of Illinois. Okay.
All right.
I did my undergrad, ILL.
Me too.
Oh, high five. There you go.
Lisa.
And I came with an intention to eventually be a veterinarian. I'm not a veterinarian. Okay. I love my dogs. I could own a wonderful doggy daycare. I'd be awesome with that.
I bet you would.
But I realized right away at U of I from a few of my first classes, I wasn't necessarily feeling connected to a lot of the STEM, the kind of science labs.
Yeah.
And I remember panicking. And I remember putting the dimes in the payphone. Yes, dimes in the payphone. Calling my mom and saying, oh my God, I'm questioning everything. And I had a mother and a father who said, relax. You're at the U of I. You'll figure it out. People are there to help you. And what you do when you start isn't where you necessarily have to finish. So that's a blessing, right?
True.
I didn't have anyone who I called home and they said, you're gunning through this. You have to do this, right? I had a freedom from even my family telling me, relax, you'll be fine. So I dabbled around in classes, considered switching into graphic design. I had a wonderful art teacher who said to me, Lisa, you're good, but you are a perfectionist and you're too slow. So people are taking an hour to do a project. You're taking 8 hours. So I kind of felt like I was being coached to maybe this isn't the right thing for you, which was fine. And I was kind of exploring other things. And then I remember it was getting towards the end of sophomore year. And I thought, I still don't know what I want to do. And I started having that panic, like, oh my gosh, I don't really know. And I went to the wonderful career planning office. And I will never forget this conversation. The career counselor said, "What do you do when you lose track of time?" And I remember sitting there thinking, oh my God, am I supposed to talk about a class? I don't really have a class that I feel like is driving me in a direction. I have great professors, but... And I looked at her and she said, "Why are you overthinking this?" And I said, "Well, because I feel embarrassed. I don't really have a class to mention." She goes, "I didn't say class. I said, what do you do that you just love and you kind of feel like you lose track of time?" And I remember saying to her, "I love being a resident advisor." And she said, "Tell me why." And I said, "Oh my God, I'm talking with parents when they're moving the kids in. I'm helping kids through homesickness. I'm talking to them about registering for classes. I'm doing social activities. I'm doing time management workshops." She goes, "You know, that's a career." And my head was like, what? That's a career? So I say to my students all the time, my path came from an extracurricular.
Yeah, totally.
I would have never thought that. And I also wasn't a high school senior saying, "I can't wait to be a high school college counselor." I didn't know this career even existed.
Mm-hmm.
So the reality is when someone gave me permission to not overthink anything academically, but to just kind of say, what do I lose track of time doing? What do I love doing? Then I ended up majoring in psychology. I could have majored in a bunch of other paths. Ended up getting a master's degree in college student kind of personnel, higher ed. Ended up getting a second master's in school counseling to get licensed. And
flex.
Yes.
Flex those degrees, Lisa.
But it's like, again, and then even when I was working on my master's degree at U of I, my first master's was from here, but they don't have a school counseling degree. So I had to commute to get my second master's. I did internships. I did graduate assistantships in financial aid, in career planning. And then I realized this is what I want to do. And I didn't know if it was going to be a higher ed career. I looked at jobs to even work here full-time in higher ed.
Yeah.
Didn't realize that really what I specialized in was a high school area. And I remember getting the News Gazette in paper and seeing an ad that said, Uni High, looking for someone who knows the FAFSA, the free application for federal aid. I'm like, I know the FAFSA. I worked in financial aid, right? Who can help upperclassmen think about their future and think about careers and apply to college? I'm like, oh my God, I do that all the time. And that's kind of how
funny.
I know, it's very funny. And now what? I started in 93, going on 33 years later.
Incredible. How cool is that?
It's very cool. And I tell students all the time, and I'm going to say this to even any admissions people who are listening. It's so hard for young kids to be asked what their passion is. Mm-hmm. A passion comes from lived experiences.
Yes, this is the catch-22,
right?
Doing this process at such a young age.
And at that young age, I'm sorry, you may be really curious and interested. It may not be a passion. That's okay, right? I am passionate about what I do. I've been doing it 33 years.
That's passion.
You see what I mean? So I want students to realize, and I want admissions to realize, sometimes out of your goodness of your heart, you're thinking you're giving them a prompt that like empowers them. It actually shuts them down. Because sometimes I'll have the student who says, I don't have a passion. Now they feel unworthy.
Insecure.
Yeah. And I have to unpack that with them and say, let's reframe this for you. Mm-hmm. And then they can answer it. But I do think even the way essay questions or questions on the app are worded, you'd be amazed how it makes a student even start feeling unworthy of something.
Yeah. I think that is such a good way to phrase questions like, what are you passionate about? What do you do that you just completely lose track of time? You could spend hours and you wouldn't even know.
Right.
And I think this is a great place to explore all of those things. You explored vet med, you explored graphic design, not everything that you explore ends up being a career, but like you said, you never know. I also changed majors and joined a registered student organization that ended up being like, oh my gosh, this is so fun. I love this. This is for me the thing that I lose track of time doing. Oh, this is a career. And, you just get support from people, from counselors like you, from counselors at the university or wherever you may be. The process I'm hearing from you with that response is you don't have it all figured out when you have to hit submit to your application. It's a never-ending process. You're always learning, you're always growing, you're always discovering what the next thing is going to be.
And if I can, not to get into the weeds, but I think the thing that complicates this from the students embracing that and parents embracing that is because there are majors that are sometimes closed to you if you don't get in as a freshman. And so therefore, when you are thinking about, oh my gosh, I am looking at certain fields at colleges that are considered like the most popular or the oversubscribed majors, they do feel a pressure to know what door they're going into. And I think because of that, right, and not every college reads that way. There are some colleges that only admit you into the freshman class, and you can't pick your major until the end of sophomore year. And then there are places like the University of Illinois where like the College of Aces has a different process than the College of Engineering, okay? So as long as students realize if they're building a list, they may decide that they're picking a major at this college, but they're going exploratory studies at this college, or maybe I might want to do statistics at this school. There are students who actually have 3 or 4 different interests and actually apply to different colleges because they truly are willing to pivot because they're exploring everything right now.
Yeah.
But I do think the admissions process at a given school may actually force them to feel like they have to choose something. And I don't want them to make a mistake. So letting them realize, you know what, if you really are exploring this, you do have to try this. It doesn't mean you can't consider something else.
Yeah.
But it's very hard to get into this field. So you might want to try it now.
Yeah.
So we have to have those conversations. And that's why people who do what I do, right, keeping abreast of this information and talking with colleges and giving them feedback. Like I'm someone who, again, I feel like I'm in partnership with college admissions. I can't do my job without them. And sometimes I'll say to an admissions counselor, even after they do a talk, if they come to a college rep visit or something, I'll be like, can I just let you know that when you come in and you say 11th grade is crucial, that's 6th semester. There are students in the room who went down the well 11th grade. They had a hard year. And they're walking away now feeling like I have ruined my future. And it's hard because you can't pick up on every nuance you need to think about and how a kid processes it.
Yeah.
But oh my gosh, do they want to be good applicants? And anything that they hear, they start overanalyzing. So half the time it's good for us to be in partnership with admissions.
Yeah.
Again, admissions officers want to hear how high school counselors kind of look at the process. This whole profession, whoever is doing the high school side and the college side, the nicest people in the world. So I want everyone listening and watching this to understand admissions officers are there to actually help you. You don't have to be afraid of them. So reach out to admissions is also another member of your support team.
Yeah. Wow. I'm hearing that there's a lot of resources, a lot of support, and a lot of people that their job is to help you with this. The world is your oyster. Don't stop exploring. Don't be too hard on yourself. It's not the end of the world if you have a rough semester in 11th grade, you know.
No one is looking at one little snapshot of time. You have a whole picture with a story that just needs to be shared. Needs to be unveiled to the admissions people.
Totally. Holistic review, so live holistically.
Yes.
That's what I'm hearing.
Love it.
Oh,
yes.
Okay. Is that the title for the episode?
It could be.
Wow. Okay. We'll have to see what I come up with in the editing. Well, Lisa, I could talk to you all day.
I feel the same.
This is great. We might just have to have you back.
I'd love it.
I would love to have you. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for the invite.
Yes. Okay. Well, this was amazing. And guys, we'll see you next time.
Thanks.